welcome to our first Civic Discourse panel discussion of the season. I'm Donna Banks, the Director of Development and Civic Discourse. Town Hall was founded by suffragists with the goal of engaging the public in civic discourse. From the 1930s to 50s, Town Hall broadcast America's Town Meeting of the Air, a radio program that millions tuned into each week by gathering around their radio and being here as part of the live audience. By joining us tonight in person and via live stream, you are part of that legacy. We are deeply grateful for our seasoned partners, the Center for Community Engaged Learning at Fordham University, Aspen Institute Forum for Community Solutions, and the Streisand Foundation. And for our partners for tonight's session, Bring Change to Mind, National Alliance on Mental Illness, the Ivy Fund, and WebMD. A special shout out to the Aspen Institute's Youth Forum convening, who are streaming tonight together from Aspen, Colorado. Now, a few remarks from Giorgio Silvestre to emphasize the importance of tonight's session. And I hope I didn't mess up your name. Let the discourse begin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. A quick introduction on who I am. My name is Giorgio Emanuele Silvestre, a first-year student at Yale University, majoring in the history of science, medicine, and public health, and currently the first-year class president. I want to restart that. My name is Giorgio Silvestre, a high school senior who just months ago got accepted into Yale, so happy, president of clubs, and in so many different involvements in my community. My name is Giorgio, a sophomore curious on life, starting to understand what mental health means. My name is Mono E, a child who only a few months ago had packed all of his life into a single suitcase from his home back in Haiti, moving together whatever he knew to come to life in America. And 2021 became a turning point of my life. It didn't take long after arriving in America to realize that life here would be so different, that the passions I carried, the dreams I nurtured, could find opportunity in this land. But I also realized something else. For the very first time, I was alone. My Haitian family had a phrase they repeated when it came to life in America, a phrase that I know, but I think that you should know too. Just keep going forward, no time to look back. Keep going forward, no time to look back. Today, I challenge that phrase. I battle it. One of the hardest struggles I faced when I first moved here was the weight of loneliness. Feeling alone, feeling lost, eating by myself in the cafeteria, and if I'm being honest, I had not a single idea what mental health meant. In my community, it was seen as a weakness. It was seen as something that made you less of a man, less of a person. You had to just keep going forward. So for those first few months, that is what I did. I built a wall so strong, it buried the emotions I wanted to hide. So strong, it tried to erase my very life back in Haiti. So strong, it nearly made me forget who I was and what my name is. So here is what I know now. Mental health should never be something to hide from. It should never be something we fear, as though acknowledging it is the very thing that will destroy us. Mental health is about being seen, being loved, knowing you are not alone. For too long, mental health has been treated as a battle fought in silence. Mental health is experienced in so many different ways by so many different people, and what it looks like for me is going to look like different for all of you. So thus, conversations on it is crucial. We must come together to create conversations like these, to support organizations like BC2M, and to stand beside one another to fully understand mental health, and to most importantly, ensure that everyone is seen and that their experience is valued. We have all had a long journey to get to where we are today. Matter of fact, a round of applause to where you stand. Congrats to y'all. We seriously have had such a long journey. I know I would have never made it to Yale, let alone thrive there, without the people and the community who lifted me up when I was down and celebrated me in moments of joy. It took a lot to get here, and if I'm being honest, mental health is still something I am working on. But what I do know is this: I don't have to forget the past in order to move forward. Instead, I carry it with me. The lessons I've learned, the struggles I've overcome, and the people who stood by me and by my side. Those pieces of my journey don't hold me back. They're what make me stronger. The battles I once faced yesterday are only a step closer to victory of tomorrow. Breaking the stigma means giving everyone the chance to honor where they've been, find joy where they are, and carry strength into where they're going. Thank you both to our in-person and virtual audience for being here and engaging with this conversation. Dialogue and action is how we continue to dismantle the stigma of mental health. Now let's welcome our distinguished panelists. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here in person and online for this important conversation around dismantling the stigmas of mental health. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that this topic can bring up strong emotions, but this is a space for openness, compassion, and care, both for others and for ourselves. My name is Laura Downey, and I'm the executive editor for WebMD's Point of Care print products. I will be serving as the moderator for tonight's discussion. Joining me are three remarkable voices who bring diverse perspectives to this topic. And first, I would like to introduce Maggie Hureau. She's the Director of Social Impact at Mammoth Brands, where she leads strategy across the company and oversees Mammoth Good. It's an impact fund aiming to reach over 3.4 million people in the next decade. She brings over 15 years of experience from City Year, where she focused on supporting underserved schools and building impactful nonprofit partnerships. Then we also have Darcy Gruttadaro, and she is the Chief Innovation Officer at the National Alliance on Mental Illness, where she leads efforts to expand mental health support for youth, diverse communities, and workplaces. She previously directed the American Psychiatric Association Foundation's Center for Workplace Mental Health, earning the 2020 APA Leadership Award for her national impact. And last but not least, we have Dr. Wenhua Lu. She's an associate medical professor at the CUNY School of Medicine, where her research focuses on youth mental health and advancing health equity for minority and underserved populations. She leads multiple NIH and institutionally funded projects, including groundbreaking anti-stigma interventions for Chinese American and Asian American youth. Please join me in giving our panelists a round of applause. Tonight, we will discuss why stigmas persist, how they differ across various communities, and what it takes to change the narratives and dismantle barriers to mental health care. There will also be time for audience questions at the end. So let's get to it. I'd like to start with Dr. Lu.
Okay.
What are some of the reasons why mental illness and mental health care are stigmatized? And how do these stigmas vary across the different communities in the United States?
Okay, thank you for the question. So before I answer this question, I would like to ask our audience one question. So by raising your hand, tell me whether you have heard such statements like, it's just stress, you will get over it, you'll be fine. Okay, I see all the hands raising up. So that is stigma in action. Okay, it makes a health issue into a personality aspect or something about your character. So that's like, when you think about stigma, it's like when we treat a broken bone, we treat it compassion. When we think about stigma or mental illness, we treat it with silence. That is stigma. So I also like your question about whether there are differences across the communities. Definitely. So I work mainly with Asian Americans, the Asian American population as to intervention. So when you think about Asian Americans, people think, okay, you're all, you're high functioning, right? High achieving, and you all are self-sufficient. that kind of what we call this model minority stereotype can definitely, hide the harm that we have been receiving, and also the stigma we have been receiving. So for many Asian American kids that in the US, and I have interviewed several of them, when we ask them, who are receiving treatment or services for their mental health issues, we say, have you talked with your parents? They said no. So why not? They said, when my husband, I'm sorry, not my husband, my parents, I was looking at my husband who's sitting there, sorry. So my parents expect me to be perfect, and I don't want to let them down. So, but think about it. When you are expected to be perfect, you cannot be human. So, and it's very common for us to feel hurt, right? So that's how this mental health stigma can be different across all the communities. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Darcy, would you like to weigh in?
Sure, thank you. And thank you all for being here. It's really great to see such a big crowd on such an important topic. I would say historically, mental illness has been portrayed quite negatively, and there's a lot of history in the media and movies and the way people have been portrayed, and that has really led to a very tough shedding of those myths and stereotypes that still exist for so many. The other thing is, for some cultures and some races, there is this perception of, we need to keep it in the family. Like, we're not going to let folks outside of the family know that this is happening with us. That can lead to loneliness for the family. That can lead to isolation and shame. And so, we even heard Giorgio mentioning feeling alone and feeling alone in this year. So we're making progress. I think there's a long way to go, but for many families, they just feel like they have to turn inward, and that has so much stigma associated with it, as opposed to really seeking out to community and getting healthy.
That's right.
I'll jump in too. As Laura mentioned, I work at Mammoth Brands, and one of our brands is Harry's. Hope you've heard of Harry's, the men's grooming brand. In about 6 years or 7 years or so, we've always had social impact in place, but we really had to ask ourselves the question, who do we want to reach? And what it came down to is we talk to millions of men every day. And so it sort of organically, or very, very organically, came to be that we wanted to focus our social impact on men's mental health specifically. So for this discussion, I'm going to be talking about men and what we have learned from our nonprofit partners, from our customers. And for men specifically, men die by suicide almost four times more likely than women. And then there are certain populations that we know have more men that are disproportionately affected, like veterans, like some of our Black communities, LGBTQ folks, and young men in particular. And so those are the sort of populations that we have been working with. And in terms of reducing the stigma, it was interesting coming out of the pandemic. We did some research, a survey, and we found that 75% of men knew there was a mental health crisis. They knew a crisis was happening. About 50% of those identified themselves as needing some additional support. But less than a third of those folks actually reached out for help. So what we know is that there seems to be a little bit of understanding that we are in a mental health crisis, and what we have found, and for men in particular, the access really isn't there. There is a gap in the access. So we stay focused on how do you actually go where men are? How do you show up in men's lives and make it easier to access care? And then that in turn helps with the stigma, right? It's sort of like a circular, act there. Yeah.
Thank you for that. It seems like there's shame associated and the access as well, as you mentioned. What other populations, I know you mentioned Black men, do you feel are affected, and demographics and age ranges that are affected by this mental health and the stigma associated with it?
Yeah, so I work mainly with youth and young adults. So based on this national data, if you look at the population, so the prevalence of mental illness, especially depression and anxiety, are particularly high for adolescents and also young adults. But if you look at this, the reasons why they don't receive treatment or ask for service, what do you think would be the top one reason? So for adolescents, let's think about adolescents and also young adults, age 12 to 25. So if you are going to give one reason, I just need one person from the audience. So what do you think is the reason? Maybe insurance, okay, yeah. Okay, what else? They are embarrassed, okay, yeah. Okay, it seems that there are more reasons. Coming up, one more please.
If you're under 18, you likely have to go through your parents.
Yes, privacy things, right? So these are all great answers, right? So we just analyzed some national data, from the NSDUH, the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. So we look at, we compared adolescents aged 12 to 17 and also young adults 18 to 25. We found that, across both populations, the top one reason why, these adolescents and young adults with past year major depression, why they didn't receive treatment, the top one reason was that they thought they could handle it on their own. So that basically means they are all suffering from silence. And the truth is, you cannot deal it by yourself, right? So then after that, there are some differences between adolescents and young adults. So for adolescents, other than that, they think they can handle on their own. The other top reasons are actually stigma. So they said, I don't want people around me to know about that. I'm afraid that my family and my friends will not like that. Whereas for young adults, so it shifts. Stigma is still there, but it shifts from emotional stigma to structural stigma. So for young adults, like age 18 to 25, cost, insurance started to play a role, and also not knowing where to find treatment. So these are, I would say, the prevalence of mental illness is higher across all the population. Adolescents and young adults, they are suffering more from mental illness, but quite unfortunately, over 40% of them didn't receive the treatment that they need. And 85% of them saying, I think I can handle on my own. But remember, we cannot. Yeah, okay. So that's some difference that I see at the population level.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think that we heard this also from Giorgio, that there is this perception that admitting that you have a mental health concern is associated with weakness. And in some cultures, strength is really valued, and people want to be seen as strong, and so they're less willing to come forward. And they're more than happy, we've done some surveys where they're more than happy to support someone else, but when it comes to themselves admitting that they may have a concern, they're just not willing to do that. And that's especially true in the workplace, where they worry their colleagues won't have the same level of confidence in them. And they worry they won't have the same opportunity to get those plum projects that can really lead to new opportunities and new upward mobility within the workplace. So the whole idea of the demographics, the young adults are really, the CDC has done a lot of really important looking at the data, and young adults in the workplace are really struggling at much higher levels, and it's very concerning because they are the future leaders of our organizations.
Thank you. So let me ask you this then. How can we start to shift the narrative at our workplaces, in our personal lives, so the stigma is not attached and the way of thinking changes?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think one thing we can all do is learn more about the early warning signs and really understand better when someone may be experiencing a mental health concern, including ourselves. And then being willing to check in with folks and ask if they're okay. And sometimes it's like this taboo topic feeling, like, I don't know if I really want to go there because I'm not sure what to say, I'm not sure what to do. When in fact, just being your authentic self and asking, are you okay? You don't seem like yourself. I am just checking in. This is what I'm observing. It's always good to point to what you're observing and not make it just sort of this vague idea. And then being willing to check back in, because sometimes people aren't ready. They're not ready to share, and they just need you, and you may get the hand, like, I'm good. But when you check back in, and or the other good thing, let me just say this, if you get the hand, the other thing is to just let folks know there are supports and services. If you're in the workplace, there may be an EAP, there may be the benefits, there may be, NAMI has a helpline. I'm just gonna say quickly, all that NAMI offers is free, by the way. We have a national helpline. We are 30% higher in the number of calls coming into the NAMI helpline this year. And we're at almost 70,000 calls a month to our helpline from people who are really seeking help. So there are anonymous ways that people can seek support, but the key is to really start the conversation and to ask someone, are you okay? This is what I'm seeing. I'm concerned about you. And not being afraid that you're going to say it in a way that's going to be the right way to say it, because there really is no right way. And then the only other thing I want to say, I know suicide was mentioned. Suicide is the second leading cause of death in 10 to 24-year-olds in this country. That's really just an alarming fact. And there's this perception that asking about self-harm is planting a seed when in fact the opposite is true. So the studies are very clear that asking someone, are you at risk of self-harm, is really the absolute right thing to do. So I think we have a ways to go, but learning the warning signs, knowing to check in with someone and then check back in is all very important in helping to eradicate stigma and get better outcomes and better results.
Yeah, I agree. I think knowing that the support is there is very important, right? And knowing that, asking people how you feel shows your empathy. That's also very important. So another thing is, I really like this question about how to shift the narrative. So for me, when I think about shifting the narrative, it's truly about who tell the stories, who are holding the microphones, right? So I really like, the town hall, starting this panel with Giorgio. So thank you, he's the representative of our future. He's the next generation. What we are working now is for them, it's for the future, right? So they need to hold the microphone. They need to tell us what they need. So, there are so many studies, so many interventions, well, including, the intervention that I have done in the past. So there are, the experts are working on the community or for the community, letting the community know these are the things that you need to know, that you need to do. But rarely have we worked with the community, right? So they need to hold this microphone. They need to let us know what they need. Then we can work along with them. So that's also what we are doing. Right now I'm working on my projects. So I'm in collaborating, with the Brain Change Demand. So we have done in the past 4 years in a pilot study with the Asian American high school students. So we go to the school. So we work with them in the club setting. They lead all the sessions. They lead all the clubs. They tell us what they need, and they work in all the clubs across the 9 weeks. They worked out the artwork. They showed us, the photos that they took in their community, letting us know, there are resources in my community, but I didn't know that, until I took photos in the community. They share stories on their campus, letting the other students on campus know that, there are resources. It's not that they are not there, it's that we are not aware of them. So when the kids become the leader of themselves, the story is totally different, right? So when youth leads, their peers listen, and then when the youth, when in one of our intervention study, for example, we taught, we still teach the kids, right? So we taught the kids how to start a conversation with their parents about mental health. Do you think that's easy? No way, that's so difficult, right? Think about high school students at this age. It's very difficult for them to start a conversation with their parents. So we let them know, there are ways, we understand, it's very difficult, but there are ways that you can start this conversation, right? So you can start by preparing for it, find a good time, ready your support system, and knowing that there are people who can support you. Then you start this conversation, thinking about, for many immigrant families, right, there is a wall of language, the words, of mental health for parents, they don't know it, right, especially for immigrants. So think about, revisit your childhood language, and knowing, what are the words that parents can understand. If it's too difficult for you to open up, write it down, right? Or, we also develop some pamphlets for them to bring home to their parents. So in this way, we walk along with the kids, and they are able to speak up. So that is how we change the narrative, how we make changes leading to the future. Yeah. Okay.
I would love to hear how to bring up your mental health with your parents, because in my 40s I still struggle with it. I really would love that as well. I think we put a lot of pressure too on ourselves to be experts, and we aren't professionals. So, for us, when we were taking on this cause of mental health, and we had our co-CEOs talk about it in the workplace, we had to ask our question, like, are we good at this?
Yeah.
Internally, like, how do we stand against other companies? Are we doing this well, medium, bad? It turns out I don't think we're ever going to feel good about it. I think it's just going to be something that we're just going to keep trying to do well. But I think one thing that we learned along the way was you don't need to be a mental health expert. You just, in particular positions of leadership and at work, you just need to be empathetic. It's saying simple things like, things don't feel great right now, and we understand that if the company is going through something, if there is something happening out in the world, acknowledging it. You don't need to say the perfect thing, but just acknowledging it and being empathetic goes a long way. We also found too that really providing resources for folks was important. We've created a mental health guide ourselves, but we also partnered with the National Council for Mental Wellbeing to create a short version of Mental Health 101. We call it Mental Health Workplace 101. And it's really very basic, but we now have a third of our team trained, and we are responder ready in our workplace, which we think is important if we're going to be talking about this cause area, that folks know what to do. And it's not rocket science. It's pretty formulaic, actually. And it's really just being able to listen, to understand, and then drive to the right resources. So.
That's fantastic that your company's doing that. Is there one innovative or surprising action step you've seen work and really shift stigma in your field?
Yeah, I would say NAMI has a program called In Our Own Voice, which is a presentation that's done by people who have lived with diagnoses. And we just had our In Our Own Voice team come to our corporate sponsors meeting. So this is a bunch of corporations that support NAMI. And these two women came, and they were extremely articulate. They were really outgoing. They were tremendous presenters, and they each shared on their journey with mental illness and serious mental illness. And they started out bubbly and just outgoing, and like you wanted to be their friend. And through the course of the conversation, one of them said, I was incarcerated and I came out of prison after a long prison term, and you're kind of like, wow. And I had bipolar disorder, and I had this terrible break, and I did things that were really outrageous and so very much against the law. Just really described the story. And the other woman said, I had this long-term hospitalization. I got the right help I needed. They both said they both got the right help they needed, and they just described their journey through very serious circumstances into recovery, and now they both have tremendous jobs, and they were just so engaging. You could hear a pin drop in that room, and it was a lovely moment. And all any of us in that room could think, at the end there was a thunderous just round of applause from all these corporate folks. And I just wanted to share that, because In Our Own Voice is a program NAMI does that is all about breaking stigma, and it's about showing, like, we have an image of what we think serious mental illness is, when in fact serious mental illness can be something that we don't recognize at all, because it's really people getting on a journey, getting on the road to recovery, and really getting to a point where they get on with their lives in a way that's really impressive. So it's well studied. It has been shown to reduce stigma when you have a personal connection with someone who has a condition that you think you understand, but in fact you may not, because it looks quite different. So this is the myths, the stereotypes, this is breaking that down. And that's just a really nice example. We just had that a month ago at our corporate meeting, and we're still talking about it, how powerful these two women were, and how we just really felt the power in that room of that storytelling and that sharing and that openness and the result that came from it.
Yeah. I'm going to tell a long story, but I really love it. So no, I'm just talking about my research project. So we all remember COVID, right? And we hate it. So one of the the silver linings of COVID may be that people started to realize the Asian Americans, they are suffering from mental illness. And actually, the prevalence of mental health issues is very high for this population. So that's why, 4 years ago, I started to collaborate with the Brain Change to Mind on the cloud-based mental health anti-stigma intervention specifically for AAPI high school students. So we started with nothing because, there's so little information about it, so few materials that's available. When you look at all the social media or either the comic books or the other videos, there's so few Asian faces, Asian images. So we started with doing focus group, trying to with all the kids who have been on the Brain Change to Mind program. So we talk with them, trying to understand, okay, so what are some factors that led to mental health stigma in AAPI, this population, high school kids. So then based on all the funding we obtained, we developed a non-week program specific for AAPI students, but it's open to everyone. So in the first year, we started pilot tested it in one high school in New York City, and we got 52 students. And then for the program, we developed a lot of things that's very unique. For example, we developed a comic about Lina. Lina is a typical girl, Asian American girl living in New York City. So she started experiencing some stress from the time when she wakes up in the morning, right? So their long commute from Long Island all the way to Manhattan for school, and then she's in a very stressful high school, and she experienced all this kind of different types of pressure. Then yes, of course, the face is an Asian face, right? So the kids found it very resonant. They thought, wow, for the first time, I saw a comic with an Asian face. So the stories are so relevant to me. So then this kind of representation in our materials resonates. The message also resonates. So this kind of representation is very important when you work with a particular community. And also another very innovative thing that we did was for the Asian American community or Asian American kids, they seldom have the chance to reflect on their parents' life, on the values that their parents have, which may be so different from them who grew up in the US. Whereas for their parents, they grew up, in Asian countries, right? They immigrated here. They have been experiencing a lot of trauma or this immigration-related stress. So then the kids never had a chance to reflect on their parents' value and how they differ from their own value. So we created this opportunity called, some activity like pieces of me and pieces of my parents, right? So then they put together, what makes me, myself, right? What are the values that matter to me and what are the values that matter to my parents? By creating this kind of dialogue, they reflect and also more important, reframe the dialogue, right? So, and reframe what the other people or the outside people or even themselves, they may consider as weakness or shortages, actually are the strength, right? When you think about, the Asian American families, like the stereotype, the mono-minority stereotype, right? People think, yeah, you care more about your academic achievements, right? The kids are all get straight A's, you all get a very good job. But, people really think about their parents, the immigrant parents. So, well, I have to acknowledge that, my privilege, I have received a higher education, I'm having a stable job, I'm getting, well, sort of well paid. Yeah. But at least I have a stable job, right? So, but there are also other immigrant parents, they work 12 hours a day, they are trying to get stability. So that's their priority in life. When you say mental health you should put mental health the first, to prioritize it doesn't make sense to them. They cannot resonate. But if you say, by promoting your child's emotional health, it helps with their academics, with their life, that resonates. Because it's not that they don't care, it's that they have to prioritize their survival. They care about their own financial stability, they care about their kids' their kids' stability in the future, right? So going into good school, being able to achieve well is something that can make lead to stability for them. So by reflecting on their parents' value and their own value, kids are able to reframe from weakness to strength. So that's another thing that we do. Another, very important thing that even I would say the most important thing is what we call this relational focus, right? For Asian American kids, since I mainly work with this population, right? So then the parents plays a very important role in their life. So when you look at the national data that we just analyzed, compared to the white youths, for Asian American adolescents aged 12 to 17, they are three times as likely than white youths to say, I'm afraid what my family and friends would think about me if I reach out for help. So which means family plays a very important role in their life. That's not avoidable. You cannot just work with the kids themselves, or you cannot only work with the parents. You have to bridge them together, to bring them together. And that's also what we are doing, in both my school-based project and also my recently NIH-funded project. So we bring the parents and the kids together. So we help them, start a conversation, either at home or, in my NIH project, I'm just developing the online intervention for mental health anti-stigma intervention for Chinese American adolescents and also their parents. So we first, they go separate on individual groups. Then there is a bridge point that they meet together and discuss. So in this way, we help with their family dynamics. The strength is really there. So then when parents engages, changes happen. So that's what, some other innovative things that we have been doing. Yeah.
Absolutely, and culturally, I also think that the child is looking for parental approval.
Yes. Yeah.
And that means so much to them to get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask, we often talk about mental health as an individual issue, but what are collective actions that communities can take to promote equity and support?
I'm happy to take that on. Sorry, my microphone's falling apart. So there's community is an interesting term because community can be a workplace, community can be a team, it can be a sports club, it can be a whole lot of, it can be a college environment. So I'll just mention a few things that we have been doing on the equity side to really help ensure that we are working at a community level. We have formed, knowing that there can be stigma that runs very high in especially Black African ancestry communities. Our team at NAMI has partnered with, we go to where people are, and we've been partnering with the Divine Nine. So there are sororities that represent huge numbers of women. Delta Sigma Theta is one of our partners. There are 350,000 members of Delta Sigma Theta, not just on college campuses, but across the community, right up to the Supreme Court of the United States. There's also Sigma Gamma Rho is another Divine Nine member. So we are really partnering in community with influencers and individuals who are trusted, who have deep relationships in community. We know how important that is to people feeling safe. When we go into community on equity issues, we send folks from the community, and we want to make sure that whatever we do, we say is by, for, and about. So we want to we have a program called Sharing Hope in Community that is a 3-part community conversation program that is led by folks in the community. So it's not sort of us coming from our, national organization into community. We have to partner in community where there's relationships already built, there's trust already in existence, and it's really about bringing resources that can be shared once that trust and relationship is built. So it takes time. It's not something that happens overnight. We've been working on HBCU campuses in delivering community conversations. We know how important that is, especially now with a lot of division and concern in this country. So HBCU community NAMI there. But we know how important it is to build community at the community level, and that's where we're really going to make a difference. But at the same time, we want to make sure we're advocating as a national organization, because many of the underserved communities in this country are underserved in communities that represent Black African ancestry, Latino, Hispanic, and we want to make sure that we're advocating for the services to be expanded, because we don't have enough providers in the mental health space that represent Black African ancestry and Hispanic, Latino communities, and people really want to connect with care that feels right to them because of the representation issues. So it's a process to work on equity and support, and we've learned a huge amount. The only other thing I'll say is we have created a whole lot of partnership with the faith community. We know the faith community is a very important community for many, and we have more and more faith leaders coming to us to say, we really need your help. People are turning to us. We are often first responders, and we don't know exactly how to address many of the issues that are coming toward us. And the other thing is, what we're finding is that faith leaders are feeling burned out because they're being asked to do so very much in the community. So we want to learn ways to support them, and that's an equity issue too. So a lot of opportunity, a lot of action happening at the community level, but much more can be done for sure.
One thing that we've learned from our partners, our nonprofit partners, is that, I think you're getting a new mic, is that healing happens in community. And I think, you know, sometimes we tend to think that, and while there is a very much a clinical individual side to mental health, there is community mental health. And the truth of the matter is that these solutions already exist. Culturally competent care has been in communities for years and years and years and years before we even knew mental health was a term. There are particular communities, like Black communities and Indigenous communities, that have been doing this for years. And I think for us as a mental health funder is to really find those innovations or things that have been happening forever, maybe not an innovation, the good work, and try to scale them, because that's what they really need. They just need more money, they need to be well-resourced, and they need to potentially be brought to other communities. But I think that's what we continually find, is that there are solutions that exist in communities every day. They just aren't respected as such or scaled.
I agree with both of you. I think for me, you know, we have been collaborating with different types of community. So there are two things. One is for the community, like, you know, when we work with the schools, and also the local communities in the mental health field. I would say, you know, the most important thing that I learned is be patient. So it takes time to build trust, but once the trust is there, things get easier. So for example, you know, like 4 years ago when we started working on the project, it's been very difficult actually. So then how do you get the school support, right? So especially for high school, how do you get the leadership support? That's very difficult. So inch by inch though, we got the trust with one school. Then it led to 2 schools in the second year. So now this year, so we have 4 schools. So 2 schools in New York City and 2 schools in California. So it takes time. Took us 4 years to come to this stage. So, but as long as you know you are doing something that's meaningful, you're doing something that will lead to change, and the community will eventually trust you, then it's worth doing it. You just got to be patient, right? And also, you know, the community also need to be patient with you, right? So it takes time for you to collect data, to analyze, to publish, right? So, but eventually we will get there. So another thing that I would like to say, you know, it really needs a community, like a bigger term, to do things together. So for me, I think what I would say is, so we need a collaboration between researchers and nonprofit and also industry. So for example, for me, you know, the researchers, as a researcher, I can bring in methods, I can bring in data, right? But for nonprofit, like Bring Change to Mind, you bring trust, appreciate the trust that I have been given and the confidence I've been given in the past 4 years. And then also industry support, right? Like this year, with all our pilot findings, we are one of the awardees of the 2025 Morgan Stanley Children's Mental Health Innovation Award. So we are very proud. And now, with this award, we are able to expand our project to 4 schools, 2 in California, 2 in New York City. So I think, the industry or other, funding agencies, right, or funding organization, you bring scaling, you bring resources, and when we all work together, so we are able to build a scalable, evidence-based, and culturally competent program that will eventually, make changes.
Thank you so much. What are some culturally competent approaches to fighting stigma in immigrant or minority communities that mainstream campaigns might miss?
I think I mentioned earlier that I think trust is foundational and relationships are key, and it takes time. I couldn't agree more. And I think that those who are designing and creating and delivering the program need to really understand and be representative of the community. And I will say that's something at NAMI. We have 700 affiliates across the country. I happen to be in the national office. There are 700 in community. So we always train and make sure that those delivering the program represent the community. So if folks are going into a Black African ancestry community, they are representing the community. They understand the dynamics, they understand the needs, they understand the cultural norms, and they know how to have conversations that will land right. So we have a program called Sharing Hope. It's 3 conversations. The first conversation is just very much warming up folks to who we are, and again, delivered by the community. The second conversation, these are 3 sessions, is bringing in a clinician who represents the community. So a Black African ancestry clinician comes in. It could be a therapist, it could be a psychiatrist, it could be a counselor. They're talking then, you've warmed up folks, they know about kind of who we are and why we're there. Now we're gonna talk a little bit more about some clinical issues very gently. The third session is about really getting into more the early warning signs, how to have conversation, and the importance of connecting with care. And I will say we do an evaluation and we do research on every program NAMI does. And we are finding tremendous outcomes associated with people saying after 3 sessions, based on that time I've spent in that program, I'm more willing to seek care when I need it. I understand when I need care. So we are really evaluating, are we meeting the goals of the program? And I think culture-wise, it's leading to very good results. So we have Sharing Hope for Black African Ancestry, we have Compartiendo Esperanza for Hispanic communities, we have Chai and Chat for South Asian communities, and we're starting Sacred Circle in Indigenous communities. So there's a really, it's like very, I think slow and patient is the key here. It's about building that relationship first, because you cannot go into a community and expect to drop a program in. It has to be a process that involves understanding and really engaging the community. And if you can get the community leaders and the influencers on board, that's where we came into the Divine Nine. The other thing we did was work a little bit with the Confess Project. Does anyone know the Confess Project? The Confess Project is mental health information delivered in barbershops in Black African ancestry communities. Very smart, go to where the folks are. That has been a really great partnership, a very strong approach. So again, a nice example of cultural competence and really meeting people where they are.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
agree. Yeah, gaining the trust is important. For me, I think the cultural competence is not translation, it's not adaptation. It's really about connection. So you have to get people on board from day one. So when you start thinking about what they need, so that they can work together with you. So when you work together with them, and you know we are working together for the same goal, then you will see the results. Yeah, like for our intervention, for example, when well, I talk too much, but I'm just saying, like, some of the results. So quite, some result that surprised us. I would just, surprised us was actually, this spring. So we just, finished our analysis quite surprisingly, but also, nicely surprisingly, right? So we found that we actually seen, so after attending our school-based intervention, so we have 72 students, and it's open to everyone. So about 80% of them are API students, and we found that after the intervention, there are statistically increasing number of students who said, because of this program, my parents had a genuine conversation with me about mental health. And also an increasing number of students say, my parents are more able to recognize my need without asking. So to me, this is, to us, so this is well, although we hope we would achieve this, but still it was very surprising. So that's also, something that we see. So when you really work with the community, get the students on board from day one, so the outcome will be there. Yeah. Okay.
I was just going to add to, culturally competent care also includes, for us, it includes veterans. Like if you're a veteran and you need help, you do want to call a crisis line where someone knows about the veteran experience. You want someone to know how do you have access to your weapon. There's all of these questions that you triage, and they're very important to understanding, what they have gone through. And then we've also found young men, right? Like in culturally competent care, we want to talk to young men in the way that they're talking to one another. So we have a program that's a partnership between Futures Without Violence, National Council for Mental Wellbeing, and Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's called Team Changing Minds. We want to reach more young men, and with specifically more Black and brown young men. And where do you need to go to find them? They're either playing sports or they're playing video games. So we're creating the largest responder network who will get to those boys, which involves training coaches and teachers. And right now, an interesting phase of our project is training their peers. So young men to young men. So where our young men peers, they're usually moderators actually on gaming systems. So how do we train them? And then they're able to understand the signs, point to the right resources. So I think when we talk about culturally competent care, it's not just about language or ethnicity. It's actually like, what is your current culture? Who will you actually respond to, and what will resonate with you?
Yeah, I wanted to just add to something that you just said that really made me think of it, Maggie, and that is culture. Really, it feels to me, and connection is part of that too. It's like it's all part of understanding, because we did some work with the NCAA, and I remember I went to a meeting at the NCAA headquarters in Indianapolis, and they had a student advisory group member who came up to the microphone, and they asked, that's this student who was representing, they're called SAGs, and they represent athletes across the country at Division 1, 2, and 3, and they asked, what are the 3 biggest concerns of student athletes? You're representing them, you're here, you've talked to the others, you've gained information, and you understand. And she said, a D1 athlete said, mental health, mental health, mental health. Those were the top 3 concerns of student athletes. So that's one thing that really gives you a sense of where we're at on that. But the other thing she said that I thought was really important is she said, I have a message from the athletes. Please don't come in with your programming if you don't understand what athletes go through. So if you don't understand that we travel, we have academic demands, we have pressure to keep our spot on the team, if you don't understand, and that's cultural competence. It's coming in with an initiative to say, I get it. That you have to really have that experience to be able to speak to it. So I feel like culture is just so much a part of understanding who your audience is and what experience they're having and speaking to it in a way that really is relatable. So I just wanted to point that out because I remember being really struck by the student athletes saying, please don't come to us with your programs unless you really get us. Yes. And it was like, wow, that's a profound thing to say about a whole lot of things related to mental health.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. How can people in the audience partner with organizations like yours to scale anti-stigma approaches with work, personal lives, all the things?
Yeah, there are so many ways, right? Yeah, you already see, now you know my project a little bit, you know my research a little bit. You can work with us, right? So if you are you work in a school, you are a teacher, yeah, bring your school to us, right? So we can bring the program to you. We can work with our school. We can work with the students. And when we are there, when the students lead, they can make changes, right? So if you are a therapist, especially, or you know any therapist who are bilingual, bicultural, who speak the language, who know who understand, the clients or the participants, also let us know. They can take referrals from our project, right? And then if you are from a community organization, also, we are more, we need community collaborations, right? Let us know that you have your population. So for example, I have been recently got in touch with a community organization in Brooklyn. So I told her that I'm working on this NIH-sponsored project, developing an online intervention for Chinese American adolescents and their parents. They said, wow, we need this program because there's such a huge need in our organization. The parents, they said, my kids are struggling every day, but I don't know where to seek support. I don't know where they can find help. I need your help. So that's the point, right? Why we are here. So we want to be the bridge between the community and the evidence, right? So let us know that you are in that community. We are, we look forward to collaborating with you. And also, if you are like a founder, right? Also, please, we need you. We need you to scale up our project, right? So we have the evidence. We know our program is great, right? So there is impact here. So we want to broaden this impact. It's not for us. It's for the community. It's for the future. So yeah, we definitely can all work together, and we need your support.
Yeah, and I would say just quickly that NAMI was founded by a group of moms sitting around a kitchen table who were being blamed for their children's schizophrenia. And we have grown and that was in 1979, so we're getting close to our 50th anniversary. But we have grown into a national movement, and we do have 700 state and affiliates around the country. Our mantra is, you are not alone. And we have free education programs, free support groups. We do NAMI walks. There's tremendous advocacy happening on Capitol Hill and also in the state houses across the country. If you're interested in advocacy, if you're interested in supporter education programs, NAMI's there. So just really know, here in New York City, NAMI New York City is amazing. But I know we're streaming, and we are across the country, and NAMIs have helplines. It is a community that is there so that you know you're not alone, and families learn one from the other as far as, where are the good services, where do I go to make sure my child gets the right support at school. It's like having a warm place to go where you can learn a lot about the experience, which is often very difficult when a loved one gets diagnosed with a condition, and or if you're someone who's living with a condition and it's new to you and you're really wondering how to cope with it. We have support groups for individuals with diagnoses, for families. So NAMI's grown into quite a national movement, and there's lots out there for you. And again, it's all free, so please do consider our helpline. Our national helpline has been incredibly active this year, and we have lots of information online if people are looking for information. So join the movement. We need you. We need everyone. We need to really address this mental health crisis we're experiencing in this country.
I'd also say from just like the workplace perspective, not to be afraid to bring this into the workplace. And it does have a place now. And there are organizations, I'm sure NAMI does this, and National Council for Mental Wellbeing that have trainings that you can take for the workplace. You can get trained in a mental health first aid, which is about an 8-hour course one day. And that is an easy way that you can get involved. And you know that you can also probably, I'm sure, work with these organizations to create your own training for what makes sense for you and your workplace. But I'd say don't let it. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be great at it. As long as you're trying, that's what really matters.
Thank you. One last question. What advice would you give a teacher or a parent or a coach who wants to start normalizing these health conversations today?
Well, yeah, I'm a teacher, so how about, I can start it. So, it's interesting. So something also, another anecdotal story. So what surprised me also, I teach, in a medical school. So my habit was when I teach, the first thing that I open each class was I ask, how are you doing? Yeah. So I started each session or each class with that same question. I thought it's just a habit for me. But then I was surprised that, in the end of semester, the evaluation, many students, they said they really loved it, that I asked them, how are you doing? And I listened. So, and the answer, that's easy, right? Do it. So you don't need to be a mental health expert to make the change. Just ask them, how are you doing? Really? And listen, wait for an answer. And if for a parent, ask the same question to our kid, and don't jump to judge, don't jump to fix, right? So it's just that simple, right? So another question that I have for you, how many times have you been asked, how are you doing? You said, I'm good, but in fact you are not. Had that happened to you? Yes. So next time, if you really don't feel well, just say, no, I'm not feeling well. So model this vulnerability, letting people know that it's okay to be not okay, right? So then that starts the conversation. That in that way you are building this space for your friends, for the people that you love. Right? So it's just that simple. You don't have to be an expert, to make changes. So, and also mind your language, the language you use, right? So how many of you, or whether you have a kid at home or a high school student at home, you say, oh, I'm so OCD, I'm so depressed today, right? Don't use this clinically word. So then you are equating the people with the condition. So we are blaming them, right? So instead, so we say person with like OCD, right? Or person with a condition. So in this way, we show empathy, right? So mind our language, the words that we use also matter. So these are some minor things that we can do in our daily life, right? So, and cumulatively, the change will be there.
Yeah, and I would say that and we've kind of already said this, but I think know the warnings. If you're parents, if you're a teacher, if you're a coach, know the warning signs. And we have a form right here. We have a fact sheet right here on warning signs. But there's a lot online that is reliable. That's the other thing. By the way, TikTok is not a friend to mental health information. I don't know if you know that, but there have been studies done that say like 60% of the information on TikTok on mental health is incorrect. So that's a little bit scary because we know a lot of young people are getting information there, and it's scary to think they're getting the wrong information. But as parents and teachers and coaches, there's a big opportunity to know the warning signs, to normalize a conversation about mental health in your classroom, in your home, and as part of your athletic team. I've been called in to speak to teams, and I'm so impressed when coaches do that because they want to have the conversation more normalized within the context of the sport. But the key is talk more about it, not once, not twice, but make it a regular part of what you talk about, and check in as a family and just say, how are you doing? As Dr. Lu said, it's like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? I'm checking in. And vulnerability is a superpower. So as a coach, if you are willing to share a personal connection, you are a leader, you are someone athletes look to, you have a huge opportunity to show a little bit of vulnerability and open the door to athletes feeling like, I guess it's safe here to do that. And that's true in the workplace too. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity. Learning is the first step, talking is the second step, and then keeping the momentum up is the third part. So I would say if you can do all that, and there are programs for schools. There are lots of programs for schools. The National Council has programs, NAMI has programs. We heard about a new program here that's very exciting and promising. So there's a lot out there. Just find it and know there are students in your classroom who are struggling mightily. And we know the statistics, and it's very concerning. So just know they're in your classroom and know what a great service you'll do to them and their families by really starting this normalizing mental health.
And the only thing that I would add to that, and just thinking about reaching men too, is being patient with those conversations and potentially mixing it up. Like maybe you don't want to sit down at the dinner table and have a conversation. Maybe you just text. Maybe it could be easier for someone to text and talk through that way. So I think just mixing it up a little bit instead of potentially like if you're a coach sitting your whole team down and saying let's go around in a circle and tell us how you feel, like maybe just when you're walking back to the car you pick up a conversation. I think just mixing it up a little bit, particularly for young men and boys, we know that actually works. So
Thank you so much. Those were such great tips. Well, I believe now we would like to open the floor to questions from the audience.
So my name is Christina Sparrow. I'm the founder of the New York City Mental Health Collective. We're a community-based organization that advocates for the well-being of all New Yorkers. Kind of nervous, excuse me. So I think it's Dr. Lu, right?
Yes.
Spot on. Thank you for everything you all panelists said, and thank you, Georgia. Is it Georgia?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So, language is very critical.
Yes.
I live in mental health condition myself, and EDP. Do people know what EDP means? Emotionally disturbed person. And so, what we do in this country, in the city, and everywhere, we criminalize mental health, and we shouldn't. So, EDP is used by law enforcement, clinicians, hospitals, fire department, 911. I've been advocating to change deficit-based language that describes people as emotionally disturbed to person experiencing emotional crisis. Governor Hochul passed it 2 weeks ago. So now millions of people like me, if we have to call for 911, they can never call me an EDP, they can call me a person experiencing a crisis. So this impacts millions of people throughout this country, throughout the state, and I'm hoping it would be nationwide. So we need to start talking about language like you mentioned, person first language. Thank you.
Yeah, I thank you so much for your comment. And I did want to say that NAMI at the national level was incredibly involved in the passage of the 988 legislation. So, and we got a 988 number like 911, but this leads to mental health crisis response services coming through. And we worked very hard on Capitol Hill to get that passed. Now we need to really, thank you. Yeah, my colleagues, and they created a Reimagine Crisis. There's a Reimagine Crisis Jam. It's a huge number of national groups that are working on this, but now we really have to build the crisis response services in communities. It's not enough to have a number. You have to have a number, but at least we have trained counselors on the receiving end, which is really, really important. But now we have to make sure when people need mobile crisis units, that they are there, that they are responding to people where they need them. We are alarmed by the number of people in this country who go to jails and prisons because of the existence of their mental illness. And what ends up happening is we are building a mental health system in the jails in this country, and people are getting medicine there and treatment there when they should be getting it in community. And then we are sending them back out into community, and they do not have the supports and medicine and treatment and other things they need, and they cycle right back in. We do not want our jails to be the treatment place for people that have mental illness. It's traumatizing. It's the absolute wrong place for them to be. So that's something we can all fight on. And it's about reaching out to your local leaders in community. These are community-based issues to expand the availability of services. We work at the national level, but this is a community effort. So we need to be asking about what we're building and how we're building it. And the more we ask that, the more we will put pressure on our elected officials to build the right services.
Yeah, I was just going to add that if you haven't seen yet some of the results from 988 and how it actually has worked, and that it has led to less folks being incarcerated due to mental health and mental illness. So the early data is very promising. We'll see, but like that's really exciting to see. And to double click on your point of funding those organizations that are answering the call, those are folks like the Trevor Project. Those are folks like our partners in Stop Soldier Suicide. Lots of them have been defunded in the past, few months, 6 months or so. So that is just to let you know that when you call those numbers, they're going to real organizations folks who have been trained in culturally competent care, and they're ready, but they need to keep their programs afloat, and they need money to do that. So.
Yes, we want money. Yes. We that there is always hope. So yeah, and also like Darcy said, when you see your friend or anybody else, they show some signs of maybe hurting themselves, right? Just ask. So just asking it is very important, and letting them know that there is help over there. So you are not alone. So that's really important. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Downey Martinez. I have a background in education. And please forgive me if you already answered this question, I might have missed it. But I hear a lot of focus on broad spectrum for mental health and maybe tapping into older adults. That's college level, but any one of your organizations or much of your focus, do you have any division or focus on adolescent youth? You spoke a lot about how TikTok and influencers and social media, which kids are just engulfed in, and it can be very toxic for them, and a lot of them don't have outlets or don't know how to speak. As you had mentioned, some cultures don't want to speak. Can you speak to any of the research or any of your outreach to kids, let's say at the middle school level or grades, let's say 12 and up, and even the primary kids struggle as well, but can any of you speak to that and what you're doing to try to curtail suicide rates at that age, and either kids who don't have an outlet and they respond with violence? Can you speak to that? Because we don't hear much about that around the world, not just in this panel. I'm just saying, because that's a big thing that I think should be addressed.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I'll start with at NAMI. I mean, we have a lot of programming for young people, because half of all lifetime cases of mental illness start by age 14.
Yes.
And 75% by age 25. So many people don't know that these are really chronic conditions in many cases that start very young in life. So we have just developed, and we've gone through a pilot study with the University of Texas at Austin, and we're now working with the University of Oregon on a middle school mental health curriculum that will be available to teachers at the middle school level, and that it's lesson plans, and the pilot study has been very, very positive to help teachers understand how to teach young people about mental health, because nobody really at middle school level, there is not a lot. There's more happening at the high school level. There's not as much at the middle school level to really help them have the vocabulary, have the information, and teachers can really do that in health class. They can do that in any class. So these lesson plans can be used anywhere. And we developed instructional information about how the teachers can use it. We want to be very careful we do not overburden schools. We know schools are underfunded and asked to do way too much. So that is one thing. The second thing, we had NAMI on campus at the college level. We just expanded it to the high school level. We had, at the beginning of this year, around 190 clubs. We now have 400 plus So the growth has been tremendous, and this is about raising awareness, getting young people at the high school level. They have clubs, right? They have all kinds of clubs. They have, I don't know, lots of clubs. But a mental health club is something that they're really jumping on now, because they really want to be more involved in their own mental health, and it's really exciting to see. At the middle school level, we're developing some creative mindset tools for them. This is brand new for us. We're doing more things for even more like 3rd to 5th grade, called Mindful Me, which is really designed to get very young people to understand what they're feeling. The only other thing I'll say is we created trauma insight training that we also piloted, we also studied. It's for child-serving professionals. It's an online asynchronous training to help child-serving professionals in child welfare, where there are lots of kids that have experienced trauma in their lives for obvious reasons. But any child-serving professional, and a lot of teachers are taking this trauma insight. So this is for ages, 5 to 18. And we have had about 5,000 child-serving professionals so far take this. It's about a year old. It's online. We make it very easy. But we want to make sure that folks understand trauma, because trauma and violence is very much connected, and poverty and other issues that many families struggle with. So we have a lot of programming for young people. And I'm really seeing, among other organizations too, a bigger influx of programming at the middle school level, because you're absolutely right. We have to start younger. It's before high school that we really need to reach young people.
Yes, I agree. The prevalence of mental illness is actually very high for adolescents, especially those at the high school years. So that's, so NAMI is great, has been doing a wonderful job, reaching out to a large population in the country, nationwide. And so meanwhile, for me, I've been working from my research, collaborating with the Bring Change to Mind organization. It's also a nationwide organization. It has been implemented in over 600 schools, high schools at this time. So they have a well-developed, platform online, so students can easily implement it in their own club in the school. So all they need is one or two teachers or one or two school guidance counselor to be their advisors. Then all the materials, they are freely available online. So then also the Bring Change to Mind, they also have a very well functioning platform that can provide guidance to the students, so that they are all they can develop and run their clubs in the school. And also there are also a lot of resources that's pretty available to the high school students. They cover all the topics about violence, about social media use, and how to promote your mental health. So in this way, what the teachers are definitely important, right? So who can provide guidance to the students. And then for the students, the club is actually a very good platform for the students to really learn about mental health themselves and to be able to teach. So we have all been students in our life, right? So when you are able to teach, you really learn it, right? So then when like I said, when youth lead, peers listen, right? So then the change is sustainable. So yeah, for those schools, Margaret, who is the interim program manager for the New York area of Bring Change to Mind. She's here. So if your school is interested in implementing this, a club, right, in your school, please do it. It is evidence-based. There is, there have been several publications supporting the evidence of this club-based, mental health intervention, anti-stigma intervention for high school students. And I know they are, although I'm not involved, they are expanding to middle schools as well. So yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I think, of course, we're all collaborating together, right? With different organizations. Yeah.
I have a question. I think what's amazing, you guys are so clear on ways we can support, and I just have another question, a little bit more on the brand side, because I think we're very familiar with supporting organizations, right, and nonprofits. And I love having the perspective of kind of a brand here that is supporting this issue. So for people, for ways to support your brand, who is essentially also supporting people within this space, are there ways maybe, like, besides buying the product, which is definitely one way, are there other ways that maybe we can to help a brand, because your voice is so loud, right? So how can we further you guys to impact people too?
Yeah, so you can purchase our products. That will ultimately lead to us being able to donate more and invest more. I do think, when you, so from a brand perspective, I would invite folks to, if you are looking at a brand and they may be talking about mental health, what we have found is that awareness will just get you so far. We really want brands to be investing and donating. For example, if you see a brand who wants to celebrate, Mental Health Month, and they just use NAMI's number on their website as a brand, but don't donate to NAMI, you could be asking those questions as a consumer, though, and I do think that that's really important, because what you're doing as a brand is actually driving folks to, they might not have the capacity. We are in constant conversations with our nonprofit partners. Potentially they might have a surge, and so you don't want to drive more traffic there. So I actually think as consumers you can be demanding that a little bit more. We've seen a lot of brands talk about mental health, which is awesome. It can do a lot. But unless you're really supporting the programs, you're really doing a disservice. And you're really going to lead to a lot of frustration, and folks don't have the access to care. And you just did that just for potentially your brand to look good for a day. Or so. So, we always, like, you as the consumers, you have a lot of power. You could be asking, how much did you donate? Where did you put it? What is it going towards? And I think that's how we make sure that it's actually authentic.
And Maggie's being very humble because she won the Engage for Good award, which is a huge award this year with the brand. And shout out. And Maggie leads that work, so I just had to share that because they really walk the walk and talk the talk. I did want to say too that I think more and more companies recognize this is a social responsibility issue, that everybody has mental health. Our mental health is on a journey, and sometimes it's really solid and sometimes it's not. And there's everything in between, and it never stays the same typically. It goes up and down, and I think businesses recognize that workplace mental health is a business imperative now. It is not just a nice to have. And they have looked beyond their own proverbial walls to say, how do we give back to the mental health movement? And I just am so heartened by that, because we need the private sector to really step up and be a part of this movement for good. And I just want to say, what we've seen, and I won't call out the company that most recently provided us with fellows, but there are companies that are really including fellows that they lend to NAMI, and they come in and they do huge projects for 3 months while the company pays them to help the movement do good things. So this is something that I want to encourage, that giving in ways that are unique and different to this movement is important, and it benefits everyone, because businesses that exist in healthy communities are going to do better. There's just no way around it. That the more you are in a community of healthy people, you are going to have better, you're going to be viewed better, but also you're going to have healthier employees, healthier families. And the ripple effect of mental health, like if someone in the family has a mental illness, the ripple effect into the workplace, into schools, into community is really tremendous. And that cannot be ignored by businesses. And those who are really recognizing that are, I think, like Maggie's company, are really getting very high return on investment.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank our panelists for tonight's great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to all of you, thank you so much for leaning in with your openness and your willingness to share. Tonight, we found out that helping to break stigma starts with empathy in our homes, in our schools, and in our communities. So take that as we lead forward, and as you move forward to try to help break the stigma. All the advice you've heard tonight and all the resources provided to you, especially leading on the table on your way out. Thank you so much for coming. Have a good evening.